Hey guys, it's your favorite YouTube channeler, KINoftheFLAMES, or Desmond if you prefer. And I guess I just kind of wanted to talk a bit because it's been a little while since my last talk. Still not quite sure how I want to do these talks. It still feels a little bit awkward because I haven't gotten into it yet. But I don't know. I've been trying to figure out how I want to do my channel still. I'm still trying to figure out a good flow for it, to fit into my life. I've been kind of like going back and forth with like doing nothing and then doing way too much. I'm trying to find like the right balance right now because it's not that hard to do a recording for a game and to render it and upload it. Just do one a day. It doesn't take that long. I mean, it basically takes maybe at max twice the time it takes to record it. So if you see like a 15-minute video, it will take me maybe half an hour probably. I mean, definitely less than an hour, no matter what. Unless I'm like creating some new graphics for like the intros or the extros. I don't know what you call those. And then do all those annotations and stuff. But yeah, so I got like a little backlog of videos right now, which is good because I'm actually going to be going out of state for a little bit. I did take a break, not last weekend, I think, but maybe the weekend before. Well, I guess, yeah, because this is Memorial Day weekend. Last weekend I was out camping, and this next weekend I'll be out visiting my 90-year-old grandpa and grandma, and my sister that I haven't seen in like 4 or 5 years. So I'll be gone for about 4 or 5 days, and I probably won't have access to a computer. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter because I can't really like upload them. I guess I can like upload like 4 or 5 videos before I leave, and you guys can try to control yourselves and watch one a day. But that's pretty much as I can do. I really wish I had that upload feature that what do you call those? The people that YouTube like geez, what do you call those? The supported channels or whatever. The ones the partnerships, yeah, the partnerships. They get all kinds of cool knickknacks. They get all kinds of cool things, like a scheduled uploader. So I could just like do a bunch of videos and go away for like 2 weeks, and you guys wouldn't know, like the difference. But can't do that yet, so that's all right. Also, I did just find out about like this cool article today. I'll show it to you right here, and it's got a link to it right now. And this is a article written by the Chinese Daily, which is a newspaper based in China. And being based in China, it's subject to government, like approval and review and editing and everything. But it's one of their yearly reports on U.S. human rights, which I thought was very interesting because it's not really it's not what you'd expect, like China just bashing the U.S. and saying China's great and everything. I mean, because they're not. I mean, I guess they do that like a little bit, but there's hardly any bias or spin as much as you think there would be, and there is a lot of citations. Like every sentence or two, you have a citation, and the great part is that all the citations are either to foreign media or statisticians or whatever. They're not Chinese-based reports, and most of them actually are U.S. So they're like U.S.-based reports by the Department of Labor or whatever, like all kinds of U.S. bureaucracies, and then a bunch by U.S. journalists. And I just thought it was really intriguing because this kind of stuff doesn't make it out in the U.S. media, because if it goes to like an editor for a major newspaper where it would actually get some attention, the editor is like, let's not put that in there because I'm getting kickbacks from senators that would rather not have this kind of information in there, and stuff like that. I mean, if you guys don't think there's corruption in the U.S. government, I don't know what to say with that. You need to get your head on straight, because our government has a lot of work to be done. And I would say, even though a lot of people think that America is the greatest country on earth, especially in America, it's not really. It's not really at all. It's the most powerful country on earth right now. It's the most powerful economically and militarily, which gives it the most influence. but that does not make it the best. I would quantify the best as in the most progressive in human rights and liberties and freedoms and stuff like that. And once upon a time, back when it was founded, and probably shortly after, and then, you know, during the freedom of the slaves, the emancipation, it probably was one of the best leading countries in the world. But nowadays, Europe is far overtaking us, especially the northern countries like Norway and Sweden. I think there's index charts somewhere by some group that keeps track of human rights in different countries, developing countries, you know, advanced countries, pre-industrial, post-industrial, that kind of stuff. And U.S. is actually like really low. Like I think it's like either 40 or 60 out of the 260 countries or something that we have in the world, which is ridiculously low. And like the top 5 or 10 or I think it's are mostly all European countries. For example, they've got like you know, universal health care, which is like paid by the government, you know, and well, I guess that's the only thing that really comes to mind for me. But it's basically a bunch of welfare stuff. Like you don't have to worry about if you have a problem with your health, you go get it taken care of. You don't have to pay for it. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, you can get it taken care of. Same thing with like dental, and I'm sure they've got better services for the needy as far as like shelters and food programs are concerned, and you know, all this stuff. And I'm sure it's a lot easier for them to handle these kind of situations because they have a less diversified base of citizens. So there's less issues with like bigotry in those countries, I would assume, and segregation, which there is still segregation in the United States. I mean, people aren't blatantly racist still, but I come across racists daily, and it's not hard to see why. And then we've got like all this anti-immigration stuff going on in the U.S. and it's ridiculous. This is not like, you know, we don't follow this credos of you know, promoting human rights. I don't know if we ever did, but if it might be part of our Constitution, but we're not really following it very well at all. The article details a lot of this, like for example, problems in journalism, freedom of journalism, problems with freedom of expression on the internet, such as like all these internet privacy bills that are coming past, and issues of people posting stuff like on Facebook or Twitter, which the FBI and CIA has access to. So if you have anything that comes remotely close to a threat, they can start monitoring you and maybe arrest you. And they also go over how many journalists have lost their jobs because of views that were, too politically, I don't know, politically unsafe to talk about or something is what it was quoted as, and I don't really know. But you know, they've got all the citations there for these U.S. sources. I haven't looked it up, so that's a little bit of I'm taking it for granted on my side, I guess, if I'm not looking those sources up. But I'm assuming that if that was fake, if all those sources were faked, it would come up somewhere, because I did find it on Reddit, and there was no mention of that. Because I mean, I've got better things to do than scour sources. But it's very factual. There's no slanting of every sentence. It's just stating facts of what things have done. And then it's like every couple paragraphs are like, oh, and then like so-called democracy. It's like that's the only spin you get, is so-called democracy. Which that's another thing. We don't have really a democracy at all. I mean, when you represent people in your government, I mean, do you know who your representatives are? Do you know who your representatives for the House of Representatives are? Do you know who your senators are for your state? Because, you know, I don't, and I only barely know who my governor is, and I know who the president is, and all these other things, because those are the only things that get covered in the media. Because I don't look up those things. I'm not an activist. I'm a normal guy that's kind of interested in politics, but I'm not an activist. I'm just a normal person. If I'm not gonna look those up, who is? They're gonna get all their information from the media, just like an average person does. And the average person is who, controls the vote. The vote remains in the hands of the majority, and the majority only know what the mainstream media tells them, and they don't tell them much. But if you looked at your representatives for your state, you would find that they don't represent you. They don't represent their what do they call it? Their constituency. They don't represent their base. The only thing that they do is they vote most of the time, typically, in whatever will get them reelected to their position, and whatever gains them, or whatever gives them power, or power in any kind of sense, whether that be a better electoral position, like a cabinet for the presidency, or finances, or they may vote on a certain bill in the way they feel, or to keep up relations with other senators or representatives of the House so that they can get a vote on something that they want. So, for example, if, like gay rights is a huge issue for the people that are going to vote for this representative, I think they call it constituency, then he wants to make sure that that bill goes through, no matter what. So he will vote on something that he doesn't care, or that his constituency doesn't care about, for another senator, in response for that senator voting on the gay bill for him, or whatever, gay fairness, or whatever I just said. So the point is, it's back scratching. It's like, you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. And this is basically, just one of the small flaws in how our politics works. Never mind the whole corporations aspect. So really, there's just so much to look into here. And this article just was so pleasing that China being one of the forefront developed nations. I don't know if you call it developed or developing, but it's pretty far up there. It's actually taking a stand against U.S. Politics, and what U.S. claims to do right is their human rights. And I'm happy because who's going to do it? Are European countries going to do it? No, they probably get USAID, and they wouldn't start getting USAID. It's like, they're like the only country that would do this kind of thing, and they're actually doing it in a way that will appeal to Western eyes. That's in a non-biased and factual way. Now, when I was reading the comments on Reddit for that article, there was a lot of people that were blasting China and saying that, well, I'd rather live in America where at least, we don't get locked up for saying what we want. It's like, yeah, okay, that's great. You live in America, and so this won't happen to you. But that's not the point. The point isn't that China is writing it. The point is that what is in the article. I mean, it really has nothing to do with China. It has to do with America. And you may question its reliability based on China's intent and reputation, but then you should investigate its sources, which are clearly labeled, and then take the facts at face value. It has nothing to do with the fact that it comes from China. It could come from anyone, but China's the only one that's going to do it because they're the only one that has an intention to do it. If the other European countries did it, they would get not sanctions, but they would be ruining their ties with America. And if you're a small country, ruining your ties with the most powerful country in the world, that's not such a good idea. Not really. So, it's like, who's going to stand up to them? And of course, it'd be like, oh, well, you can stand up internally, but anyone that talks internally gets either crushed or incentivized to say otherwise, or marginalized. Like, basically, if they can't convince the media to not do this by threatening them, and if they can't convince the media to not do this, which is, like saying these important things about human rights, if they can't convince them to not do that through incentives such as, like pure money or tax breaks or, back scratching, then if they can't win them over, basically what they do is they marginalize them. So like this is in the case of like the Occupy Wall Street. It's like these people are fed up, and nothing you're going to do is going to change the fact that they can't get jobs and there's severe income inequality. It's nothing you can say that'll change that. So you can't buy them off. You can't buy off all of them because it's a grassroots effort. There's no one organizing it. It's just the idea behind it that's gathering everyone. And you can't threaten them because it's like I don't think a lot of them think they have like nothing to lose, and they think that this is their their freedom. So what do? You marginalize it, and that's what a lot of the news outlets did when it became a thing. For example, some of them just flat out didn't cover it at all. Like this is mentioned in the article how CNN and Fox News didn't even after the Occupy movement became a global thing, after it started spreading to other countries, it still was it still wasn't caught up and picked up by CNN and Fox News. They didn't cover it like at all, which is ridiculous considering that it was a big thing when it was just in New York exclusively. I knew about it then, and then it spread to other cities in the country, and then it started spreading worldwide, and then it's what, they're still not covering it? It doesn't make any sense. But they mentioned how anything else that's going on in another country is covered immediately, and depending on how big of an issue it is, like the protests like of the Arab Spring, it's covered basically 24/7 because it's such a big issue. But on the home front, no, not so much. Now, like I said, I don't know what specifically their incentives were to do this, but obviously it's not in their interest to cover this for some reason. Otherwise, why would you, not do it? If they covered such a big thing like this, it would only give them more viewers, which would give them more money from their advertisement, unless they didn't need to get them viewers for their advertisement because of X reason, which they're obviously getting. It's just ridiculous. And then once I believe I read somewhere that Fox News started covering it finally because it was just too big to ignore. It was like, okay, this isn't going to go away. It's going to be a thing. Let's start covering it at least, so we don't look like we're trying to ignore it. And so when they started doing that, they just started marginalizing it. They said, oh, it's a bunch of hippies that that don't have jobs, and they're just whining because they can't because they instead of like out looking for a job and trying harder, they're just whining about it. And it's just like, okay, that's sure, there are some people that are doing that. I wouldn't say like whining, but it's like they don't have a job, and I don't know if any of you have been out of a job for a while, but it took me like 6 months after I lost my job to find a job delivering pizzas, and going from like where I made like $16 an hour in an internship to making minimum wage plus tips if I'm lucky. After finding that job after 6 months, it's just like, wow, it's ridiculously hard to find a job. And that was before everyone started complaining about how bad the job market was. So it's like they really undersell the issue at hand, and they just try to marginalize it to make it seem like it's not that big of an important deal, and all the people that are a part of this movement aren't like your average person. They're lamentable people. I don't know. They're people that you should not hold of high esteem. These are these are bad people. People that can't hold a job. People that can't find a job. People that have no skills. People that aren't trying hard enough. People that are just it's like, oh, well, let's just go in the park and sit around and cry babies and want the government to give everything to them. That's not what it is at all. Yeah, no. So that's my little political rant for the day, I guess. But you guys should definitely check out this article. I've only read like a quarter of the way through it, but I can already tell it's like really informative. And you really have no good reason not to read it. Because if you think that our political system is just fine and we have no issues as far as freedom and human rights and we're completely secure, then go ahead and read this, and maybe it'll change your mind.